I'm going to speak about the state-of-art technology and fuels available, and would like you to join me together for the journey how we can achieve our common goal of decarbonization in maritime industry. My view here is to be more practical and timely affordable measures. That's why I choose LNG as a vehicle to prevail our journey. The topic I have said here is decarbonization potential of LNG as a marine fuel, or greenhouse gas and maritime fuel technology roadmap. As I have introduced myself, I'm Kang-Ki, or better known as K.K. Lee. I'm working for a listed GmbH in Austria. And also, in parallel to my profession, I'm also working as a member of Greenhouse Gas Strategic Group of CMAC as a vice chair. At the same time, I had a couple of experience how to utilize LNG as a marine fuel according to the IGF code. And also, I work other membership for the LNG as a fuel to be developed and used more in maritime field. Shortly, one slide I choose to introduce where I am working for. AVL listed GmbH based in Austria. We are working about 11,000 people. Among those, over 7,000 are engineers and scientists. We are working most of our activities on research and development and testing and simulation for the powertrain systems. Today, on this session, what I very much like to discuss with you, or to be together in a time to think about our common goal for the greenhouse gas 2050. It could be said as decarbonization through LNG as a marine fuel. For this reason, I would like to introduce, and also I would like to show you what is the status of LNG market and new buildings and IMO GHG strategy. And also, what could be technology, the state of art, could be available together with the fuel, and what could be the future of our common playground maritime field till 2050. What is our fact, where we are, and what could be the solution to be taken? Here I would like to emphasize the maritime transportation is so far known as the most clean measure in terms of emission. Here on the right side, you can see this is a maritime transportation, this is rail traction, this is a road transportation, this is the air, let's say, freight. So it is, in a statistic, it is known or it is observed the maritime emission level is just half of rail transportation, and truck or road transportation is 3 times higher than rail. And air freight is 8 times more, which means the maritime transportation is by the factor of the 40 cleaner than air freight transportations. In parallel to the world trade, let's say, increase in average about 2.5 to 3.5%. So the trade follows with the transportation. So far, most of the transportation is relying on maritime media, which is shipping. And that is the basis why we still think, of course, many of you couldn't feel that is not the case, but for the long, let's say, horizon, the maritime field shipping will grow in this graph. This is a projection which has been made by ITF. In short term, LNG trade is rather down at the moment due to the COVID-19. Of course, the consumption of the energy or demand of energy is rather reduced. I guess all of you have heard once this biggest ever order has been taken place by the Qatar, 100 LNG carriers. This is a really big, let's say, momentum, which will give a bound back to the another growth of Korean shipbuilding industry. As you all aware, there has been a lot of, let's say, global regulations has been made, as you can see from this slide. And this is globally ever strengthening and developing further in different areas. So you could see here, NICA, Here's NICA and ECA, and more, we are also stressing on these particular matters. All in all, we can summarize as a, let's say, terminology of greenhouse gas. Sorry, I'm not very used to this speech with the masks, so it's not very convenient for you, for myself. So please, this is my apology of not a clear pronunciation, and also I'm not very used to this kind of speech. I think many of you will be the same. And then on next slide, this is a slide showing it's a kind of declaration from the Korean government side. Korean water also declared as an ECA from January 1st of 2022. So let's summarize as one term. Decarbonization is a kind of our common goal, how to achieve. IMO strategy for the major reduction in greenhouse gas emission from the shipping is established 2018, as you know. And that is a target set by 2030 to reduce CO2 by 40%, a reference to 2008. And then by 70% of reduction of CO2 by 2050. And then lately, that means just a few months ago, EU Parliament also have agreed to, let's say, to reduce CO2 by 40% by 2030. And also, just a couple of months ago, the October 19th and 23rd, there has been a meeting on the MEPC 75 session. And there are three key lines which I quote from this meeting. One is the technical requirement to reduce carbon intensity based on new energy efficiency existing ship index, which is called EEXI. Another one is operational carbon intensity reduction requirement based on a new operational carbon intensity index, that is a CII. And then these two, let's say, index has to be implemented from January 1st of 2026 at latest. Which means in, let's say, concept-wise, I understand this is an approach for both technical and operational measures to comply for our common goal. So let's make a horizon, and there are many descriptions or illustrations, but I would rather like to follow DNVGL's view on their report to terminate three, let's say, categories on terms: short-term, mid-term, and long-term. So we could say for the short-term, there is a tightening, EEDI, and SEEMP, and speed reduction, and so on. And midterm, where we are more now focused on, is energy efficiency measures and carbon pricing, and also plan for low carbon fuels. This is what I like to discuss with you a little more than the others. At least to meet IMO's strategy, the first net zero ships first net carbon zero ships should be or will be needed to start entering in a global fleet by 2030. CMAG is an organization worldwide, but mostly active, let's say, discussions or move in Europe. And this is association for the manufacturers or stakeholders for the powertrain associated manufacturing or industries. And there they have formed 2 years ago a working group called a Strategic Working Group for Greenhouse Gas. And for last 2 years, they have studied what could be the pathway, what could be the a kind of, let's say, study for the available technology. And then they have issued a position paper, and together with one position paper, 2 white papers. And there they have concluded or summarized so far in the mediate study by saying the technology itself, it will be rather difficult. So the fuel should follow together. That will be the fast way to comply IMO 2050. And at the moment, they have also prepared 2 more papers. That is white papers number 3 and number 4 on the way. So soon it will be available. So it will be rather, let's say, a good guideline for everyone who are interested on this issue. Let's discuss about or sketch about what kind of technology we can discuss, we can apply to comply our common goal. And here, what is today, I brought 4 categorized, let's say, measures. So first one is, of course, as fuel, and then how to produce power, and then what is main drive for the propelling of the ship, and then what is propulsion system. And here on the bottom, on the bar, you can see lots of corners, or 3 out of 4 is regarding the fuel. So together with the technology, without having a fuel transition, it will be very, very difficult to comply what we are aiming for. So here, as a first line, I will say for the fuel, I have quoted LNG as a kind of a bridging technology of bridging fuel to the net carbon zero fuel. To reach there, we need the immediate usable, the fuel to reach to our common. That is the LNG, which we can, many of the stakeholders are agreeing, which I quote here. This is a kind of a forecast for the fuel in maritime field, how we can project the fuel can be used on maritime field. And as you can see here, after the 2050, still LNG as a fuel is a big part of the share of the spectrum you can see. This is a 2 different projection and having a similar, let's say, forecast. Of course, these different fuels, it is not burning by itself. This should be, let's say, controlled combustion to bridge from the fuel to produce energy, and this energy to be used for our need. And here, I would just highlight on the right column here, you can see this is the fuel for the category of net zero carbon fuels. On the top here, you can still see this is LNG, and then in this green box, this is a kind of our goal, which we are aiming for. This is hydrogen and the ammonia. But to reach here, because of reasons which I will elaborate a little later, we need the technology. This is a kind of a, let's say, summary of the technology to convert this fuel to the energy which we need. And you can see here lots of energy, let's say, technology we need. For hydrogen, for example, on the first column, all those technologies, of course, because of the time constraint, I cannot go into detail for each individual ones, but this is a good demonstration what technology we have to develop according to the different fuels. Then now let's talk about LNG as a maritime fuel and what is its potential and why I have focused on and highlighted LNG as an intermediate fuel for reaching to our common goal of greenhouse 2050. There are a wide variety of the fuels, of course, also can be investigated as a marine application, and such as CNG and HCNG, LPG, LNG, biodiesel, a lot. But here I will specifically mention about one big potential which could be really worthy to investigate it. And here I quote from the Professor Dahm from Eindhoven University, who have worked hard how to increase the potential of the LNG. So according to his study, LNG, if we can reduce the temperature about 15 degrees, that means minus 100. So far, the liquidation temperature is 163, but if we go down by 15 degrees, then it will be 178. Then the LNG will be crystallized, so-called slush LNG. On this status, his study shows we can enrich by hydrogen, which means hydrogen-enriched slush LNG can be generated. As we all aware in the maritime field, Korea is a country known as one of the, let's say, the best facilitated country for LNG industries. Not only LNG as a kind of, let's say, integrated technology, but vertical lined up of all associated component manufacture and technologies, and also shipbuilding industries, very well developed. So this could be one big potential which can be combined with the well-established Korean LNG technology to green fuel. When we talk about LNG, there are always pros and cons. One of the disadvantages of the LNG could be the slip. So when LNG is slipped, then we are talking about the global warming potentials. And there has been a previous discussions and presentations from the previous speakers, several measures how to reduce, such as on high pressure dual fuel system, which can be much more fine-tuning, and that way we can reduce. That is one way. And another way could be low pressure dual fuel system engines. There could be ISO. And here another demonstration by 3D CFD calculations, we can even reduce further. So this is the technology which will bring to reduce in general the methane slips. As you see here, there are demonstrations. I borrowed this chart from the MAN, their web seminar, webinar 2020, and there very well illustration here. You see what is a volumetric comparison, and here you can see the difference between here HFO to the LNG is just factor 2, but here you can see what is difference, which means still there are far to go to use hydrogen as fuel on board the ship. So this is why I say as a bridging technology and bridging, let's say, the fuel is still LNG. And here is a rather technical description about, let's say, how to produce slush LNG. And this, let's say, method has been developed by Professor Dahm from Eindhoven University. And that way here, you can see this is LNG feed, one way in, and then there is a pressure difference, and that will be generating a cold LNG even down. So that will generate slush LNG. Yeah. So this is the illustration which you can study more. And here is how to add hydrogen. You see, this way we can add on. That is the way how we can generate the hydrogen enriched slush LNG. And another part of the, let's say, potential for LNG, it is coming from the life cycle management of CO2. The CO2, in any way, from the present technology, will be generated, as long as the prime mover using the fossil fuel. So there is a way which we can utilize this CO2 if we can take it out. So if we can capture out, and then this can be used as new generation process on land or ashore to generate a green synthetic LNG. And next phase, I can show you what could be the vessel. Here is one small study from my colleagues performed for one of the container about a little less than 10,000 TEU container ship. And we have exercised whether this carbon capturing is possible, and this plant can be installed on board the ship. And according to this study, physical dimension of this size of the ship, having this power of the engine, about 38 megawatt. And then we have a very rough calculation, but still, according to this rough calculation, we can assume that this carbon capturing system can be installed on board the ship. So instead of concluding anything, I would rather like to deliver a message to share with you. This message, I will say, the IMO strategy to reduce greenhouse emission by 2050, 50% down, will be a must for shipping, which will require paradigm change to powertrain on ships. The technology to maximize efficiency alone cannot be possible to achieve target. So it must be combined with operational measures, which has been described and agreed on MEPC 75, the alternative fuel. Considering that the marine fuel requires the competitive price, global availability, and safety, LNG as a marine fuel is still the most effective intermediate fuel to bridge the step to carbon neutral fuel such as ammonia and hydrogen in the future. So I would say LNG is a current fuel, and also it's a now solution. So once again, I would like to thank you for the participation and attention, and for the invitation of the organizers to have this opportunity to share my perspectives. And also, I do hope we all together prevail for the cleaner world. It could have been much nicer if we were together, face-to-face mode, and discuss more, let's say, closely. It would be nice, but it is due to the fact the coronavirus, it is not possible. But thanks to the IT technology, we are still able to discuss and communicate online. I wish you all, your family, your colleagues, safe and keep in a good health from COVID-19. Thank you very much for your listening. Thank you.